Welcome to REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a very special guest that is going to share her badassery. It's a celebrity, folks. I can't wait for you all to meet her. But before we begin, here is today's badassery bestowment. This is an anonymous quote that has been a huge influence in my life. And it goes like this. Entrepreneurship is living a few years like most people won't, so you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. So when Vance and I first started our real estate investment business, I printed out that quote, on cardstock, and I placed it all over the house. Over the years, they would kind of fall behind shelves, get tucked into a drawer, just get lost in the shuffle, except I have one left, and it's in the window over our kitchen sink. It has water stains on it, and it's a bit faded by the sun, but I took a moment today and I reread those words. And I do have to say, the first couple of years as an entrepreneur were a struggle, I won't lie. Any extra money went right back into our business. We spent less and less time with our friends. We would take on projects and pray that our education wouldn't fail us. Not to mention our unsupportive family members that never believed we could achieve success because they projected their fear of failure on us. So there were many times I just wanted to give up, but I'd see that quote out of the corner of my eye and I just kept going. There were times when I was exhausted and wanted to go to sleep, but I had to complete 30 more minutes of my online course, so I stayed up late anyway. There were times when I had to turn down yet another invitation to a happy hour because I had to pick up 2 extra pieces of tile. There was almost a full year that Vance and I would not exchange holiday gifts because that money was better suited towards growing our network. There were plenty of sleepless nights, worrying if we were going to run out of money because a completed project took longer to sell. So the good news is we never gave up, and that's the point. All of the struggles we experienced in those first couple of years laid the foundation for the success we built and are now enjoying. I am grateful for every new day. And because I spent a couple years like most people won't, I now get to live the rest of my life like most people can't. Now, on to today's episode. I mentioned I'm so excited. We have a celebrity, and I first saw her. She is a coach in a mastery program that I'm a part of, and she was on stage in front of probably 300, 400, 500 people, and she was talking about mobile home parks, and I was like, what? I did not know you could make money from mobile home parks. And so I am so honored to have Christy Duckett with us, or do you go by Christy Harris Duckett?
It's Christy Duckett, Christy Duckett Harris, Christy, hey you, whatever.
Hey badasses, because that's what you are. So I'm so impressed to have you here. So Christy, welcome. Thank you for being on the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast.
Awesome. Yay. I'm so excited, Jen. Thank you for having me. I love you. You're amazing. Your energy is great. And I cannot wait to teach a little bit about some mobile homes.
Awesome. So quick, give us a background. I know you used to live in Raleigh for a short period of time. So we do have that connection. Tell me where you're from. Tell me about your family. I know you have a great family. Your husband, by the way, also an amazing person, went to my college. So he is almost as cool as you. I'm just saying. So
I know. Huge UCF. I know.
Go right. All right. So tell us about Christy.
So just to give you a little background about myself, I grew up actually in Virginia in a super small little rural town. I actually grew up on a farm. My dad was a farmer by trade and actually built homes, ironically. Now looking, forward into life, I got into real estate, and I think that had a lot to do with it. And my mom, I was raised in a very traditional family, My parents have been married 51 years this year. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. So I was really lucky to have her there, but saw my dad work hard. So like everyone else, I grew up with that work hard mentality, go to college. And that's exactly what I did. And I graduated from George Mason and Radford with a psychology degree.
Oh, wow.
So for anybody that has that knows that you pretty much don't make any money and you really go into sales. And that's what I did. So I worked in corporate America. And what was interesting, even from a very young age, I always knew I was an entrepreneur at heart, but I just didn't know where to channel that energy. And real estate was always a part of my life, but my dad was the one who did all the work. He was the technician, which we talk about. And everything about real estate I hated because he owned rental properties and literally made us paint them when bad tenants moved out. So it really was funny when it came full circle and I got into real estate because I really found that was the way to create my wealth. And I actually went to an educational seminar, got into real estate, started investing in 2007, which you know what was going on with the market then. It was not the best time to really get into real estate. That was when the market was shifting. But what was cool, even in that market, I learned that you could make money in real estate. And the first house I actually bought back in 2005, I just sold this past summer. And it was amazing to see the growth in that property and the money I made. So it just showed me really the key to wealth, success, generational wealth really truly is real estate. So I went full time with that. And I literally started doing real estate, wholesaling, rehabbing, just like everyone really kind of starts out. And I came across mobile homes and found this really untapped niche market that a lot of people stayed away from because they knew nothing about it.
Yeah, because I remember vividly because this mastery program that we're a part of, they teach you to, buy properties, flip them or wholesale them. And here you were this like shining light talking about mobile home parks. And it was just, you were like a pioneer to take over this. And it blew me away. And I know just a handful of people that have been very successful in it. Well, anyone who is involved with mobile homes, mobile home parks, manufactured homes, whatever it is, they make a killing. So I can't wait to pick your brain today. So you found mobile home parks. Tell us how you found that. How did you kind of stumble into that niche?
At the time, it was funny. I was living in Florida and most of the mobile home communities in Florida are gorgeous, not like the trailer parks we all grew up knowing. And that's why most people stay away from them, mostly retirement communities. And I literally found an investor that was investing in them. And I talked to them a little bit and I thought, this is going to be a great business. And I actually had two guys mentoring me on just real estate alone. And I went to them and said, listen, guys, there's this really great opportunity in mobile homes. I just talked to an investor making money. And they were like, don't ever buy a mobile home. It's a piece of garbage. You'll never make money. And like every good student, I didn't listen. I just went out and found the expert that actually was doing mobile homes. So I actually read a book. That's more so how I got into it and learned a little more.
That's awesome. And by the way, when you talk about the mobile home parks in Florida, because I don't know if you know this, I was born in Florida. So you're talking they're beautiful because they were full of the little pink flamingos. And like, that's what I think of the mobile home parks.
Board tables. Yeah, they're gorgeous. Yeah. And then when you tell people about mobile home parks, they usually know of the trailer park in the town they grew up in that was drug infested and looked awful.
Exactly. So you met this gentleman and he had written a book. I remember, in fact, I wrote it down like 3 years ago when I first heard you speak. Of course, I don't know where that is, but tell us what the name of that book is.
Yes, the book is called Deals on Wheels. And the gentleman's name was Lonnie Scruggs. And I actually became very good friends with Lonnie and his wife. And he took me under his wing and mentored me. And we did a couple little masterminds with him. Unfortunately, Lonnie passed away a couple years ago. Great man. He invested in real estate and his niche was not mobile homes. But the way he found out mobile homes made money is he bought a lot of commercial real estate and homes. And with one transaction he bought, a mobile home came with the deal. And he soon learned I can make money off of these things and started researching and learning the business. So he too kind of stumbled upon it and cracked the code on it. And I just literally was a good student and learned and kind of built on that.
And there's so many different aspects of mobile homes, you have you have the land, you can rent the hookups, you can buy the house and rent the house. And so tell me the different nuances, and then like, what is the like cream of the crop combination you want? Like, do you want, all the land and all the mobile home parks on it? Or do you want to just have the land and rent spots, or half and half? Or tell me what is the like sweet spot?
That is a great question, because that's where people think, I really want to buy a park. And I say, that sounds great, but do you really want to do all of the work? So there's a couple ways if you're looking at buying just one mobile home. And I recommend starting that way. Don't go full force until you actually go in and buy just one home. Now, that one home can be in a park that someone else owns. The big thing is you just need to get with the park owner or manager to let them know you are an investor buying a home in that park. You want to make sure that you can form a relationship with them and have a great work balance. And why this works for them is because they're able to collect lot rent from you, so they don't have to worry about the headache, no matter if the tenant pays or not, and you're responsible for the tenant. So I like that model getting in, because you can buy mobile homes, in some areas, and this sounds crazy, but as low as $1,500. I mean, I've bought them for less. I've had people give them to me for free. You would be shocked. But then the rehab on them is very minimal compared to a house, because it literally is $10. So you don't have to go in and fancy it up too much to rent it. And the rental rates are very comparable to what apartments rent for. So it's actually super affordable with a yard. So people love that. So I like the model going into a park, buying an individual home. Now, can you buy on your own land? Absolutely. Now, this is where the terminology gets a little tricky and people are confused. So again, this is why they stay away from them. When you buy a home that's in a park that someone else actually owns the land, they rent you the lot rent. And your home is a mobile home that is truly mobile, meaning the wheels, the axle, everything has not been taken off. So you can always move that home later on from that park if you want to. And it's actually yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I had a quick question. What is a standard like lot rent? Is it lot rent?
That is correct. It is. Yeah. And that's a great question, because it can fluctuate literally in a market like mine. I'm in Columbia, South Carolina. We have some homes and parks where we pay $150 up to $325 a month. Now that can include just the land, or that can include water, sewer, lawn service. It just kind of depends. If you get into markets of Phoenix, Florida, Arizona, all over the state, really California, your lot rents can be up to $1,500 to $2,000 a month, which sounds crazy. But when you look at what the cost of rents are there and what it costs to buy, it really kind of makes sense. And of course that comes with more amenities.
Gotcha.
Now, when you buy that home in a park and it is truly mobile, it is actually sold on a title, like a car title. So literally it is a piece of paper that has the VIN number like your car, and the transaction's actually done at the DMV. So, which sounds so simple. Now every state's different. So you need to kind of check within your state. You can contact the DMV and they can walk you through that, but you never want to buy a home without the title, because you want to be able to have that if you ever want to resell it, move it, do. Now, if you buy a home that's attached to land, so we see that sometimes more in your rural areas outside of a city, the house is actually detitled, which means that title is taken away. They take the piece of land and they actually take off the wheels, axle, they tie it down with a certain method and attach it to the land. Now, what's cool about this is you can actually get financing on those. During the pandemic right now, we just flipped 2 mobile homes on land and made it as much of a profit as we would on a single family home, which is crazy to think it's a mobile home. But they also, for your buyers, can get FHA financing and conventional financing. So some of the big lenders are actually lending on mobile homes now. Now they're looking typically for newer models, but that's an option of using that method to buy and actually owning the land, the home, everything. So it's more considered real property at that point.
So does it still have a VIN number, or because you take the wheels off, it's no longer, is that what changes it?
The VIN number is removed. Exactly. And then you actually have a HUD tag on the front of the mobile home. It's a red tag you'll see at the front left or right hand corner. And if it's a double wide, it'll want to be one on the front, one on the back. Typically they're faded out right from the sun. They start out red, but then there'll be like a silver just color on there. And that number is actually what you need in order to sell that home.
So does a mobile home, is that when it transitions to what we call a manufactured home?
That's a great question too. So this is the confusion on that. So we see mobile homes, right? And if they look trashy, we call them trailers or mobile homes. That's like the commonality. And then if they look a little nicer, we call them manufactured homes. But the real distinction between the two is before 1976, it was actually June 15th, 1976. Everything before that time is considered a mobile home because there were no standard building guidelines. These homes are built in a factory. After June 15th, 1976, HUD came in and said, listen, we want to build these to a better standard. We want to really make a great product. So in order to do so, we want these specific standards built within the homes. So anything technically after that date is a manufactured home.
Yeah.
So literally, you can call it a mobile home, but most people don't understand the difference between the two. So really everything is kind of a manufactured home nowadays.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Tell me how you then start at buying a mobile home in a park and then renting it there. What would be a step up from that?
So I would say a step up from that, you then move into really buying the park, which I tell people, if you're looking at a park, I would start small. If you're buying the park and there's park owned homes, which means not only do you get the land, but let's say you get 10 homes with the park. The rents are higher because you own the land and the home. So the cash flow can be very good. But you also have to think now you're buying a really commercial piece of real estate that is a bunch of individual units that could have a lot of problems and maintenance. So looking really at repairs, deferred maintenance on those homes when you buy a park is huge. Because even if you have a tenant that's been paying for 5 years and lived in there, that sounds great. But when you get into the unit, what if that tenant moves out? How much work are you going to have to put into that to get that back rent ready? So even though your cash flow is higher, a lot of the expenses could be much higher as well.
Are these hooked up to septic systems, or I think you said sewer before?
Another great question. So if in a city location, they're typically hooked up to sewer.
Okay.
You're going to find city water and sewer. If they're more rural, you're going to find that sometimes they could still be on the city water or county water, or they could be on a well, which I've seen a whole park operate off of main wells. And then you could also have typically 2 mobile homes per park are on 1 septic tank. So you could have, if you have 10 mobile homes, you could have 5 septic tanks. So there you go with the expenses adding up because, how often do you have to pump those? Is there a septic issue? And if you're on a well, you also have to have your water tested depending on how many units you have by the county monthly. So that could be a huge expense if they come back and say, listen, there's a bacteria in the water. You have to dig a whole new well, or here's the issue with that. So they can go both ways. More of your city, you'll find the sewer city water.
So what's like, as far as just the actual mobile or manufactured home, what is some standard maintenance that you have to do on them? Like what's pretty typical?
So what I see, I kind of learned this concept of look up, look down, look all around. And I think we do that anyway when we walk into a house, but a mobile home for sure, because you have to think these things are built in a factory. So they're seamed together. And over time, what ends up happening, some of the older homes have particle board in the floors, which sounds insane because literally it's almost like cedar particle board. And what happens is when water hits that or leaks, it automatically disintegrates the floor. And the homes are up off of the ground a couple feet, right? So you have this constant wind going underneath the skirting on the mobile home a lot of times if it's not secured and insulated well. So what can end up happening is you'll notice around the kitchen sinks, bathroom floors, bathtubs, if there's one small leak, it all of a sudden just kills the floor. So you have to potentially come in and replace all of the subfloor and flooring. So that's one of the majors I've seen. And the plumbing is for a mobile home. It's not like a house. So it's much, it's not as intricate. It's much cheaper and not as well put together sometimes in the older ones. So leaks are very common. The other thing I've seen is around the roof line and the windows. you'll see that leaks come through there over time as well. And what ends up happening is the walls will sometimes separate from the actual flooring because it's all built upon a metal frame. So everything is built up from there. And if water gets down between there, you have a separation of the wall from there. So that can cost you some money coming back in to kind of restabilize and do that as well.
And what does a brand new manufactured home cost these days? Like just a single wide?
Yes. So I tell people go to the mobile home lot and take a look, because if you haven't ever been in one, you should go into one. You should go in the worst one you see, because it's actually funny. Because if you go into a brand new one, especially with some of the big builders like Clayton Homes, these things are nicer than most people's brand new houses.
I know. I've seen some. They're crazy.
Phenomenal. So you can get the cheapest model of a single wide, probably about $30,000 just for the home alone. All the way up into, if you're getting into like a double wide or triple wide, I mean, you could go up into the 100,000 mark.
Wow.
But I would say on average, a nice double wide, you're probably looking at 55, 60,000.
Okay. And then how much does it cost to move them?
So the prices have gone up a little bit. I'll tell you, when I started buying mobile homes here in my market, I could get a single wide mobile home move for $1,100 to $1,200, and a double wide probably $2,200 to $2,500. You get in some of the more expensive markets, you can spend anywhere up to 10 grand to move it.
Whoa.
So if you're moving a pre-existing one, it can cost quite a bit. If you're buying brand new from a dealer, a lot of times they'll include that cost in, and they have built relationships. And that's how I found a lot of my mobile home movers, was working through dealerships and different people and just establishing relationships to get cheaper costs. But I would say, anywhere from probably 1,500 up to 10 grand.
That's when you can go to like Craigslist and you find people who will say, I have this mobile home, and they don't want to spend the $1,500, the $5,000 to move it, whatever it is. And you can get those like dirt cheap sometimes. And you said free.
And if they're in a park, here's the other thing. If somebody, unfortunately, is struggling financially and they have, $300 lot rent a month to pay, and they can't even come up with the lot rent, but they own the home free and clear, at this point, everything is super negotiable, because as that lot rent tax up, the park will start to place liens on the home. They aren't able to move it. They can't pay to move it. So now it's this asset that now just becomes to them something to get rid of. And you'll find, with most people, so most of the mortgages on mobile homes, when people buy them, are probably about 15 to 20 years. So if you're now looking, I would recommend, if you're looking to get into like a newer model and buy something, stick with some of the newer ones. If you're looking to move it like 2000 or newer, and you'll find by that point, people have paid them off. So they're free and clear.
Wow. So you have given us, Christy, a ton of information, and just to make, my listeners a little dangerous with these mobile home parks, but I know there's a gazillion more questions that people want to ask. You have put all of this into this nice, neat little package, and, I can see Christy right now. We're both doing the Rona no makeup, but she has this course out where she goes through everything. It is so well done. I've seen bits and pieces of it. Tell us how you kind of evolved this all into a course. It's an online course.
It's an online course, and we're in the final stages of launching it. And what's really awesome is, literally, when I got into mobile homes in 2007, I kept literally telling everyone how great they were, and nobody would listen. And then slowly, all of a sudden, everyone started buying mobile homes, or the biggest mobile home investor, Warren Buffett, right? All these big names came into the game. And then people started saying, whoa, you know what? If these people are investing, maybe I should too. So for many years, I talked about really educating people, because I've always believed in education and learning to do things the right way. And there's really no one out there that teaches mobile homes. And I thought people will never get into them, and they're super affordable. Even if you don't want to be a full-time investor and this is not your passion, but you want to create a couple $100 up to a couple thousand a month, mobile homes are a great avenue of something really entry level people can get into. So when the pandemic hit, it was like definitely more obvious than ever. Like, now is the time. People need to do something, right? People are losing their 401ks. They always have been. They're looking for alternatives. And this is a very easy way from, I feel like, someone who works full time to someone that's retired to a stay-at-home mom or dad to get into this.
And also, there's such a need for affordable housing. It's a seller's market right now. It is crazy what houses are going for. It's tough to find things off market, stuff that needs 100,000 in repairs, and they're still listing it as is and getting full retail value for it. So this is such a great opportunity as well to get into this. So you have very little money down, and then you can provide affordable housing for people, which is such a need in our economy and everything right now. So go back to your course. I'm sorry, I cut you off. I got so excited because,
No.
It's
yes. During pandemic, I thought, you know what, now is the time it was like almost like the aha moment. I need to put this together. Like I need to stop talking about it, because really I felt like I was disservicing people. Honestly, I would tell them enough about it that they would learn. But then they're like, okay, like you, right? You go to a class and you go, this is great, but now what? Like I took a bunch of notes. I have a notebook. So I said, listen, if I can put this together and really create a package deal of from A to Z, what does that look like for each person and how to do it, then it's actually going to help someone. And that was big for me, because I feel like people are in such a position now, you can't, you never could rely on a job, but now things are really, different, and people are recognizing, maybe I don't want to go back to work and I do want to stay home, but how do I do that? And how do I get out of this rat race? So it was a great opportunity for me to take the time to actually film it and put it together and do it.
Yeah, it looks great from the stuff that I've seen, the short little snippets and things. And I'm a big believer in paying money for a good education. So this is something where it's all, what's the term? Evergreen. That's what I'm trying to say. So this is the course an evergreen course? Is it something where they can interact with you at some point? Is there a Facebook group? Like, are there quizzes? Like what, paperwork, anything like contract stuff? Like, so what all is involved in this course?
Yes, I love that you asked that, because I think that's big. I just don't want to sell a course. Hey, here's the book. Good luck. Figure it out. And I really went through detailed, like if someone had zero real estate experience or they had former real estate experience, could I take anyone into this? And I've actually tested a couple people in that position to go through the course and give feedback. Like what was easy, what made sense. So a lot of it is visual, walking through, me talking and kind of going through a little bit of what I just went over earlier, the differences, how to buy, how to market, how to find your buyers, investors, all of that. So I have forms, documents that I use within my business to contact people when I'm calling a seller. Like, what do you say and how do you walk through that script? But then also I went to the next step, because I feel like a lot of courses out there leave this out. What's the actual paperwork when you go to buy something? Like everything sounds great and I can do all this and I can talk to anyone, but I'm not going to do anything because I don't even know legally, can I get in trouble if I do something incorrectly? So that's what's taking a little time to get done now, is getting with our attorney to draft some documents to at least show you, what does a lease look like when you do buy in a park? What does it look like when you wholesale a property or you flip it to sell it? What do you do? Where do you go from there? So it's a little bit of everything. And we are putting together a Facebook group of questions, because I feel like no matter what you educate and teach, there's always an opportunity to learn more and different questions come about. So I really want to create a community to really get this business down and understand it, because I feel like it's such a gold mine, but so many people just don't know what to do.
Right. Me included. And, it's whatever the shiny keys that are shaking in front of me that I go after at the time. But this, like I said, everyone that I know who invests in mobile home parks, manufactured homes, whatever it is, make a killing. So what is the name of the course and how do people find it?
Yes. So if you go to christyduckett.com right now, you can actually just type in your email address and it'll let you know when we are launching the program, when everything is completed, but it'll also give you some information and some quick buying tips on that. But it's simply called the mobile home course. Keep it simple, right?
All right. Absolutely.
I never, it's interesting because we were talking earlier, like, how do you brand yourself? You've done mobile homes. Do you feel like you're the mobile home queen? I said, listen, I don't know everything. I'm just an average person that wants to get ahead in life like everyone else and wants to provide an opportunity for everyone to do so. So for me, it's just really getting out there and educating. And, when we went into like, okay, can we make this affordable for everyone? Because I feel like a lot of times people also stay out of stuff. I feel like you've got to have skin in the game, but also people feel like if it's too much, I don't know, that's a big commitment. I think nowadays we've all been taught to be an entrepreneur, and I don't think everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Some people are okay with working a job and they love their job. They just want to supplement and add a little money in. And I think that's great, but this could be an option for them as well. So the price point on it will be super affordable that I feel like everyone can do it if they want to.
Love it. And by the way, it's ChristydUckett.com, ChristyDuckett.com. And if you go to our show notes on this podcast, you'll be able to just simply click on the link. So, before we leave and go into my badass questions, I got to find out, what is like the biggest challenge, or have you had any like major failure or anything? Like, what's something that our listeners can go, I want to make sure I stay away from that, or I definitely need her course now, so I don't do that.
Yes. I think just making sure you understand, I think it's always exit strategy in mind, and how much money do I want to put in, and is it worth it? Because I think the buyers are out there for them, whether you're selling it to someone. But I think the problem, and this as well as single family homes, you get in and you don't have your set system of what you're buying it for, what your budget is. And also, does this mobile home have a title? And am I able to move it if I need to in that county? So there's a lot of like little nuances with how old is the home? Are you able to move it? Are you able to keep it there? What happens if you buy in a park? This is big. So this is my biggest tip of advice. What happens when you buy in a park and you're working with a park owner and you have a great relationship and you have 5 mobile homes in that park, but all of a sudden that owner decides to sell off to another owner? Okay. What happens if the new owner comes in and raises your lot rents or comes in with different rules and regulations? What do? Can you afford to move your homes? Can you still cash flow them? Where do you go from there? So I think it's really important to know the right leases to have in place that cover you just in case something like that happens. And I will tell you, I've learned from experience, because a lot of these parks you buy are mom and pop, and that's where I bought a lot of my houses. But when a new owner comes in, their first goal is, how can I make more money on this park? This mom and pop haven't been maximizing, and they come in and initially raise lot rents, which kills your cash flow. So making sure you have something in writing and signed, I think, is so important. So that's probably my one biggest piece of advice.
Okay. And that's all provided in your course, which is why it's so important, and I make sure everyone goes and checks out her page and looks at it, because Christy just knows top to bottom everything about manufactured homes, mobile home parks. And, I'm so honored you came to share it with us on here. And like I said, just enough to make us dangerous. So, but there's so much more to learn. So thank you for talking about all of that. And I like to do the second part, the end of our podcast recording. And I want to know what makes you a badass. Okay. So I have an acronym. And so the B in badass is, what is a book that made a huge difference in your life?
That's a great question. So I have to be really honest. And unfortunately, I'm brutally honest, right? So I am not the biggest reader, never have been. I'm such a relationship person. Like I said, my degree's in psychology. So I feel like when I meet people, I just learn and pull from their energy. So to me, that's kind of reading the book from experienced people. But I do love podcasts. But one book, and I'm big on personality traits and body language. I think no matter who you're dealing with, whether it's in a relationship or it's in a business or a transaction, I think it's so important to know, like, why is someone doing this type of mannerism? What does that mean? So there's a book called What Everybody is Saying. And it talks about mannerisms and things you do without even realizing you're doing them. And it teaches you to read people when you're going through a process. So if you're negotiating with someone and they're like, I won't take less than this, but they're showing you a mannerism that is saying opposite, they're just saying that, but they don't mean it. And I think that's super important. And there's a podcast I just jumped on. So I have to admit, like, I do love some of my TV shows, and I love the Housewives. I'm not going to lie.
Which one's your favorite housewife? Like, I'm Beverly Hills.
Oh, see, I love New York.
And none of the New York, none of them are housewives. They're all divorced.
That's what I love about them. They're all entrepreneurs. I mean, what really all
That's
of them
true.
become entrepreneurs, right? At some point.
Yeah.
Bethany Frankel just launched her podcast called Just Be. And her first speaker was Mark Cuban. And I'm a big fan of Mark Cuban. I love him. He's straightforward. He says it like it is. He doesn't care, but he's a great business person. And most of all, I think he's just a good person, which is important to me. And just listening to that, like, really hit home. He was talking about, everyone says to work smart, work smart. He's like, but the truth is you have to work hard. So you can't go in with the concept, I'm just going to work smart and I'm just going to sit here and it's all going to come, because it's not. So I thought that was like really good. She has different people on and it rotates different entrepreneurs and how they got started, which was cool.
Well, Bethany is my favorite. I love me some Bethany. And whoo, I could drink me some Skinny Girl margaritas.
Agree. That's another reason.
Delicious. All right. So the next one is advice, the first A in badass. And what is the best piece of advice you ever received?
You know, it's interesting. So like we always think it comes from a mentor or someone, but my parents are the most important people to me. I love my mom and dad like so much. And I respect my mother and father so much. My father killed himself literally working hard. So that's part of the reason I really wanted to become an entrepreneur. When I had children, I didn't mention this, I'm married to a wonderful husband and I have 2 little boys. It was so big to me to not miss their childhood. My dad really did. He sacrificed. I think the Dalai Lama has the best quote about sacrificing your health and your life to make money, but then later on, you know, wanting to live your life and it's too late because then your health fails. And my father's a prime example of that. He is from the old generation of you work hard, you support your family, and he worked hard for us, which was phenomenal. However, now at almost 73, I go home and I see a different father. He wants a relationship because now he has the time to realize what he sacrificed. So I think it really comes from him saying, you know, work hard, don't ever give up that ethic, but don't sacrifice the things you'll regret later that you can't go back and change. And I think as I get older, I start to recognize that even with my sons, because I think, gosh, everything means so much to them right now. Like literally everything. We literally just had a house closing today. And he wanted to celebrate and he wanted to have a party, but because of the pandemic, this is my almost 6-year-old Cruz. My husband says, let's just get a piñata and we'll celebrate. And he's like, yes, we're going to celebrate that check with a piñata. And that moment will probably resonate with him for his life. And it literally is such an insignificant thing to you, but to him, it means everything. And I can see that my father missed that gap. And now getting older, it's a much harder pill to swallow.
Yes. And we're Facebook friends and I love following you and your family, your 3 boys, including Noah. And, you know, you guys just always seem like you're having fun in everything that you do. And so they are so lucky to have you in their life. And I know you are a blessing to them.
I appreciate that. I agree.
Yes. So the D in badass is drive. What drives you to be successful?
So that's interesting. For so long, it was just innate. Like I've always been a very driven person. And I thought that was like my driving force, you know, and I think sometimes it was my push to show my parents I could do it because they worked so hard. And then I kind of outgrew that because I realized I could. And I thought, you know, it's not about impressing people or, you know, nobody really cares what you do. I mean, does anyone really care what you do? They say they do. I don't know. But for me now, my drive is really just leaving a mark on the world. I feel like now it's so important to make a difference. And that doesn't have to be, you know, making all the money in the world. It's just, what are you doing? And I think for me right now, it's being a great wife and a partner with my husband. And I think it's leaving my boys with the knowledge and education to do, but also just to be good, decent humans. And I think like this hit really home in the last couple of weeks with Ruth Ginsburg passing away. It was interesting. I mean, you just think like, I think of all the things she did that seemed to her like the right thing because she lived her life doing the right thing. And you know, it was fascinating. Everybody talks bad about someone nowadays. And when she passed, I did not see one person, no matter what side of the spectrum, say one bad thing about her. It was pretty amazing at all. And I thought, wow, like women couldn't even get their own mortgage with their name on it, but because of her, they could. And that is so big. And that's something I take for granted. But now that I see, wow, if everybody just did one thing like that, how much could it improve the life of others? So I think the drive now is a bigger force of looking at that and just, you know, setting the tone for others.
You are amazing. That's awesome. And That's what drew me to like full on stalk you on Facebook until you accepted my friend request, by the way.
Well, I love you and you're amazing. And that's why I'm friends with you. So I get it, girl.
All right. The second A in badass is aspiration. So for me, I am so nerdy about goals. I'm a big believer in goal setting. So what is a goal that you have that you are working on currently?
Yes. So launching the mobile home course is my number one goal. Like by the end of the year, it will be done because this is something, but like I said, I think just for me impacting someone, I feel like I can always be better. But I feel like I have the tools to know how to be better and do better. And I have the contacts. I have a tremendous amount of friends and resources and great real estate investors like yourself and people to learn from, educators, but I don't feel like everyone has that opportunity. So for me, I think it's just really mentoring people, whether it's small children, like going into school and reading something that, maybe they're not getting from home. And we're really seeing this from the pandemic. So I think it's just helping that next generation and the younger see like there is a different path than just getting a job and going to college. You don't have to do that. If you want to do it, great. But my goal is to really push myself out of my comfort zone to get out there and do that.
That's great. That is great. And you talked about tools and stuff that you have. So my first S in badass is systems. So what systems do you have in place that help you to achieve success?
Yes. So I think a good team and everything, and I don't care if that's from like personal goals of weight loss or business, a system set in place to do. So
you had to say weight loss, didn't you? I appreciate that.
The pandemic's been rough.
Pandemic 15.
I hate to say it. I know. And I think everybody's there. It was the time you thought you had months to get in shape. Instead, it went backwards.
Exactly.
But I think just having a good support team and realizing, and I can speak for women and coaching women, we are type A. We like to control everything. We like to dump 50 things on our plate, and we like to make ourselves feel guilty for not accomplishing everything. And it's like, we can't just enjoy the minimal things we do that are so big every day. So I think just realizing, be good at what you're good at, and all the stuff that doesn't matter, outsource it. Literally cleaning your house. Like, you don't have to feel like you're the best cleaner. Find somebody that's the best cleaner and then empower another business owner to make money.
Yes.
And I think for me, that's huge. And you know what? That probably wouldn't have come along, this the God's honest truth, unless I had two boys, because they just ripped my house to shit, pardon my French. And I'm 42 now and I just don't care anymore. You know what? It's more important to spend time with them than to focus on the minutia. And I think that took having children to really push me to realize I had no choice but to outsource.
And I love outsourcing cleaning, trust me. So, all right. The last S in badass is success. What does success mean to you?
So this was a great question, because if you'd asked me years ago, and this, success is a number. Oh, if I had this much money, and I hear this from people all the time, if I just had this much money, I would be happy. But then it goes back to, would you really? So for me, success, I think getting older too, is dealing with your demons, meaning the issues you have, maybe the things you haven't done perfect, maybe the people you haven't treated perfectly, to let that go and just move on and YOLO, like live life, enjoy it. It's so short. And I'm starting to see that, unfortunately, more often at 42, it seems like people are passing away that I went to school with, and I just can't fathom, or someone else has cancer. It's insane to me that we get so focused, worrying about what other people think about us, that doesn't really matter, because if those people are judging you, they've got their own demons to deal with. So I think success to me is just being carefree, not having to worry about getting up and working a job, literally the passive income piece of that, whatever that is, if it's real estate or whatever, just having that come in, and just peace of mind and enjoying life and laughing. Lots of laughter. I think laughter is the key and solution to everything.
And with your three boys in your house, I can see the laughter all the time. You have, great moments and you share them, and it's hilarious. So in fact, my favorite photo recently is you were on your laptop on the computer, and I don't forget who was behind you, but just like,
or my youngest jumping over top of me about 25 times. And when I tell people, like, I know you're busy and I know you can do this, I have faith in you. I mean, I have a screaming child over here. I'm taking calls. I'm doing this. But you know what? I'm like, this is only temporary. These kids one day probably just will want to be in the room playing video games. So just suck it up and enjoy it.
Yes. And that's another reason why it's so important, because others can benefit from you by you teaching them. And, you just don't have the time to, and I'm sure that was probably a struggle as well, as people would say, hey, I want to learn about this. Can you teach me about this? And you're like, I'm raising a family. So smart of you to put this in a course. And then yet you're still accessible through the Facebook group if people have questions. And, everything's changing all the time in real estate. And I'm sure it will be updated and all that fun stuff. So thank you, Christy, for sharing your awesomeness with us. You're total badass. I am honored to call you friend. So thank you very much, Christy. And I hope lots of people can find you because you have so much value to provide for others. So thank you. So listeners, that is all. Thanks for listening. And we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of REIN by registering on REINmastermind.com.